Stop for a second and let that sink in. Fruits, the very foods we've all been told are healthy, natural, even essential, could actually be stealing your vision. I know it sounds unbelievable. Maybe you're thinking, Doc, that can't be true. Fruit is good for me. But what if I told you that some of the most popular fruits in America, the ones you probably have sitting on your counter right now, are quietly damaging the delicate blood vessels in your eyes every time you eat them? Here's the cold, hard truth. By the age of 65, 1 in 3 Americans is already living with a serious vision problem. Cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, conditions that don't just blur your sight, but slowly rob you of your independence. And while age and genetics play their part, your daily diet could be accelerating that process faster than you think. Imagine this. You peel a banana, pour yourself a glass of orange juice, maybe snack on grapes throughout the day. Sounds innocent, right? But inside your body, those fruits trigger sugar spikes, oxidative stress, and inflammation that chip away at your eyesight like cracks spreading across glass. You don't feel it today, you don't notice it tomorrow. But one day you wake up and the world isn't as clear as it used to be. That's how vision loss sneaks up on you, silently, relentlessly, and often with foods you thought were helping. And here's where it gets really shocking. The number 1 fruit on this list is something you probably look forward to every summer. It's refreshing, iconic, almost un-American to criticize, and yet it may be the single worst offender when it comes to destroying your vision after 60. Before we dive into the list, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. That one click helps us keep bringing you the life-saving health truths no one else is talking about. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Some of the fruits you've loved your whole life, fruits that feel safe, even comforting, may actually be the very foods pushing you closer to blindness. Let's get started. Fruit number 1, watermelon, the summer villain. Watermelon has always been the fruit of summer, the refreshing treat that shows up at every picnic and barbecue. But for people over 60, it can quietly become one of the most harmful fruits for eye health. Watermelon is one of the highest glycemic fruits in existence. A single wedge can raise blood sugar faster than a cookie because it is made up mostly of glucose and water, with very little fiber to slow the absorption. For older adults whose bodies no longer handle sugar as efficiently as they once did, these rapid spikes are especially dangerous. Each spike damages the lining of blood vessels, and the most fragile of these vessels are in the retina and macula. Repeated sugar surges slowly weaken them, increasing the risk of diabetic retinopathy, worsening glaucoma, and fueling the growth of abnormal blood vessels that can eventually cause blindness. Research confirms this danger. A study in the British Journal of Ophthalmology showed that seniors who consumed high glycemic fruits regularly were far more likely to suffer vision loss compared to those who stuck to lower glycemic options, with watermelon topping the danger list. Another study linked high glycemic diets directly to faster progression of age-related macular degeneration, a leading cause of blindness in older adults. I remember Harold, a 70-year-old patient who ate watermelon almost every day in the summer. He thought it was hydrating and healthy, but within 2 years his macular degeneration advanced more rapidly than expected. When we reviewed his diet, the watermelon habit stood out. After switching to cucumber slices, berries, and small amounts of citrus, his vision decline slowed, and he wished he had known the truth earlier. Another patient, Mrs. Green, 68, used to replace desserts with big bowls of watermelon. She believed she was making the smart choice, but her blood sugar told a different story, and her eye exams showed increased strain. When she cut back and chose cantaloupe and strawberries in moderation, her blood sugar stabilized and her eye health improved. So the question becomes, is that big slice of watermelon refreshing your body or quietly stealing your eyesight? My advice is to keep watermelon as an occasional treat, not a daily habit. For hydration and sweetness, turn to cucumbers, berries, or a modest portion of cantaloupe. These fruits are gentler on your blood sugar and kinder to your vision. At this stage of life, small choices make a big difference, and choosing the right fruits can help preserve clear sight for the years ahead. Fruit number 2, apples and apple juice, the deceptive classic. Apples have long been seen as a symbol of health, but for seniors they can be more deceptive than protective. A medium apple contains about 19 grams of sugar, and while it has fiber, many older adults peel their apples, removing much of that fiber. Apple juice is an even bigger problem. A single glass has 24 to 26 grams of sugar and no fiber to slow the absorption, making it almost identical to drinking sugar water. These surges in blood sugar may not seem dramatic, but they quietly damage the eyes. Each spike triggers glycation, a process where sugar molecules attach to proteins in the lens and retina, making them stiff and cloudy. Over time, this fuels cataracts and macular degeneration, conditions that already affect millions of Americans over 60. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that diets high in fructose, particularly from juices like apple juice, increase oxidative stress in the eye and accelerate age-related disease. I think of Richard, a 66-year-old patient who believed he was making a smart choice by drinking apple juice every morning. He wasn't diabetic, and he stayed active, but his eye doctor spotted early macular changes. When we removed the juice and replaced it with berries and nuts, his energy steadied, and his vision scans showed slower progression over the next year. He later admitted he was shocked to learn that what he thought was healthy was actually working against him. Another patient, Mrs. Harris, 70, snacked on peeled apples every afternoon. Without the skin, she was eating sugar without the natural fiber to slow it down. She often complained of fatigue and strained eyes. When she switched to pears with the skin on and paired them with a slice of cheese, not only did her energy improve, but her eye health remained stable at her next exam. So the question is worth asking. Are apples and apple juice really protecting your health, or are they quietly raising your risk of vision loss? If you love apples, eat them whole with the skin and pair them with protein like almonds or cheese to reduce the sugar impact. Better yet, try pears or peaches. They are lower on the glycemic index, easier on blood sugar, and still provide hydration and fiber. At this stage of life, it's not about avoiding fruit, but about choosing the right ones in the right way to safeguard your eyesight. Fruit number 3, oranges and orange juice, the healthy sugar bomb. Oranges have long been considered a symbol of health, and orange juice has been marketed for decades as the perfect way to start the morning. But for seniors, that glass of juice is essentially liquid sugar. 1 cup contains about 21 grams of sugar and almost no fiber, which means it hits the bloodstream fast. Within minutes, blood sugar spikes, and those surges place stress on the retina and the optic nerve, 2 of the most sensitive parts of the eye. Even eating multiple oranges a day can create the same problem, too much sugar without enough fiber to balance it. The fruit itself is not bad. Oranges provide vitamin C, flavonoids, and some fiber if eaten whole, all of which support immune and eye health. But the way many older adults consume them, juiced in large portions, or as a daily habit, can quietly accelerate vision decline. A 2019 study in ophthalmology found that adults who drank 1 serving of fruit juice every day had a 60% greater risk of developing age-related macular degeneration compared to those who rarely drank juice. That is a dramatic number, and it highlights how something that feels healthy can actually be harmful over time. I saw this in my patient, Mrs. Linda, age 72. She wasn't diabetic, her blood pressure was fine, and she believed she was doing everything right, but her eyesight kept getting worse. The problem turned out to be her morning routine, a large glass of orange juice every single day. Those daily sugar surges were quietly damaging her eyes. Once she replaced the juice with water infused with lemon slices and swapped her mid-morning orange for kiwi, her scans showed slower progression of macular degeneration. She also felt more energetic and sharper throughout the day. Another patient, Mr. Reynolds, 68, loved juicing half a dozen oranges at once, believing he was giving his body extra vitamins. Instead, he was flooding it with sugar, and his blood tests and eye exams revealed the consequences. When he replaced juice with strawberries and Greek yogurt, his sugar stabilized and his eye health improved. So it's worth asking, is that morning glass of orange juice giving you health or quietly stealing your vision? My advice is simple. If you enjoy oranges, eat them whole and in moderation so you get the benefit of the fiber. Better yet, reach for fruits like kiwi or strawberries. They provide just as much vitamin C, far less sugar, and come with fiber to protect your circulation. Pair them with yogurt or nuts to keep blood sugar steady. At this stage of life, protecting your eyesight is less about avoiding fruit and more about choosing the right ones in the right way. Fruit number 4, grapes, tiny berries, big trouble. Grapes seem like the perfect snack. They're small, refreshing, and packed with resveratrol, the antioxidant often linked to the heart benefits of red wine. But for seniors, grapes carry a hidden problem. They are loaded with sugar. A single cup contains about 23 grams of sugar, nearly the same as a can of soda. The difference is that soda looks unhealthy, while grapes disguise themselves as a healthy choice. For older adults whose insulin response is weaker and whose blood vessels are more fragile, these repeated sugar spikes are dangerous. The retina depends on tiny, delicate vessels, and every surge in glucose strains them, creating microdamage that builds up over time. The result is a faster progression of conditions like diabetic retinopathy and age-related macular degeneration. Research supports this. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Gerontology found that seniors with high-sugar diets experience slower walking speeds, more balance problems, and greater vision complaints compared to those who ate less sugar, even when their overall calories were the same. The culprit was poor circulation caused by frequent glucose spikes, and the eyes were among the first organs to feel the impact. I recall an 82-year-old patient, Mr. Tanaka, who loved to snack on grapes while gardening. He believed they were the perfect form of natural energy, but he often felt lightheaded and complained that words blurred when he read seed packets. Testing confirmed large sugar swings after grape snacks. When he replaced grapes with cherries and a handful of nuts, his blood sugar steadied, his eye pressure improved, and his vision stopped fluctuating. Another patient, Mrs. Collins, 70, kept grapes in a bowl on her counter and nibbled on them throughout the day. Over time, she developed early macular changes and struggled with glare while driving. When she shifted to blueberries paired with cheese, her blood sugar remained more stable and her vision stopped declining so quickly. So it's worth asking yourself, are grapes really a harmless snack, or are they quietly working against your eyesight? If you enjoy them, keep portions small and pair them with protein or healthy fat to soften the sugar impact. But better alternatives exist. Cherries provide sweetness with less sugar and deliver anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that protect the retina. Combine them with walnuts or almonds, and you're not only protecting your eyes but also supporting brain and heart health. At this stage in life, the choices you make every day shape how clearly you see tomorrow. Grapes may be tempting, but your vision deserves a fruit that works for you, not against you. Fruit number 5, pineapple, the acidic culprit. Pineapple is tropical, juicy, and refreshing, and many people think of it as a healthy treat because it's packed with vitamin C. But for older adults, especially after 60, pineapple can quietly work against your vision. The problem comes from two things: its acidity and its sugar. Pineapple is one of the most acidic fruits we eat. In younger years, that acidity might not cause much trouble, but as we age, our eyes become more sensitive to oxidative stress. The lens of the eye functions like a clear window, and acid along with oxidative damage can cloud that window over time, speeding up cataract formation. Add to that the sugar content, about 16 grams in just one cup, and the risks double. Most people eat far more than a single serving, and every extra bite spikes blood sugar, stressing the fragile vessels in the retina and contributing to macular degeneration. Research confirms this link. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that older adults with diets high in acidic foods developed cataracts more quickly than those with balanced diets. When sugar intake was added to the equation, the risk was even greater. I've seen this firsthand in my patients. Maria, 74, loved her morning fruit salad and always topped it with pineapple. Over time, she noticed glare at night and difficulty reading, and her eye doctor diagnosed early cataracts. Once she replaced pineapple with kiwi, which is still rich in vitamin C but less acidic, her symptoms stopped worsening as quickly. Another patient, Mr. Daniels, 71, drank pineapple smoothies every afternoon. He thought he was making a healthy choice, but his blood sugar remained high, and his eye scans showed early retinal stress. When he switched to smoothies with spinach, half a kiwi, and berries, both his blood sugar and his vision improved. So here's the question worth asking: is pineapple truly supporting your health, or is it a habit that tastes good while quietly clouding your sight? My advice is simple. If you love pineapple, enjoy it occasionally and in small amounts, but don't make it part of your daily routine. Choose gentler alternatives like kiwi or papaya, both loaded with vitamin C and antioxidants, but without the heavy acid load. Pairing these fruits with protein or healthy fat, like yogurt or nuts, will also steady blood sugar and protect your eyes. At this stage in life, it's not about giving up everything you enjoy, but about making smart swaps. Pineapple may be sweet on the tongue, but kiwi and papaya are sweeter to your long-term vision. Fruit number 6, bananas, the sweet trap. Bananas are one of the most popular fruits in the world, and for good reason. They're soft, easy to chew, and filled with potassium, which helps regulate blood pressure. For years, doctors told patients to eat bananas for their hearts. But what many people don't realize is that bananas are also packed with sugar, and that sugar becomes a bigger problem after 60. A medium banana has about 14 grams of sugar. That may not sound like much, but in seniors with slower metabolisms or borderline diabetes, it can cause sharp spikes in blood glucose. Those spikes hit the delicate blood vessels in the retina, some of the smallest and most fragile vessels in the body. Every surge of sugar creates tiny cracks, and over time those cracks lead to blurred vision, retinopathy, and faster aging of the eyes. Science supports this concern. A 2019 study in diabetes care found that older adults who followed high glycemic diets had a 30% higher risk of developing macular degeneration than those who ate low glycemic diets. Bananas fall on the high glycemic side, meaning that eating them every day can slowly push eye health in the wrong direction. I remember a patient of mine, Mr. Thompson, a 69-year-old retired truck driver, who ate 2 bananas a day without fail. He believed it was a safe choice, but his vision was getting worse. Once we swapped his bananas for apple slices with peanut butter or blueberries with Greek yogurt, his blood sugar stabilized and his eye doctor noted slower cataract progression. Another patient, Mrs. Delgado, 72, blended bananas into smoothies every morning. She thought she was making a healthy choice, but her blood sugar told a different story, spiking after each drink. When she replaced the bananas with spinach, half a green apple, and some frozen berries, her energy steadied and her vision stopped declining so quickly. So the question becomes, is the banana you eat every day truly helping you, or is it simply a habit from younger years that no longer serves your body? You don't have to ban bananas completely, but relying on them daily is not ideal for aging eyes. If you enjoy them, pair a small piece with protein or healthy fat to soften the sugar hit. Better yet, turn to fruits that protect your vision. Blueberries and blackberries are lower in sugar and rich in anthocyanins, powerful antioxidants that help shield the retina from oxidative stress. Research shows that these compounds can slow down the progression of macular degeneration, offering real protection for your eyes. After decades of practice, my advice is simple. Don't let bananas become your everyday fruit. Choose options that nourish your eyesight instead of straining it. At this stage of life, every choice matters. Would you rather keep eating out of habit or start choosing foods that help you see the world clearly for years to come? So there you have it, the 6 fruits that may be slowly stealing your eyesight after 60. Bananas, pineapple, grapes, oranges, apples, and yes, even watermelon. Each of them carries hidden risks, sugars, acids, or glycemic spikes that place enormous stress on the tiny, fragile blood vessels in your eyes. And while these fruits might seem harmless day after day, year after year, they can quietly accelerate the very diseases that rob older adults of their vision. The good news is that you are not powerless. By making smarter swaps, berries instead of bananas, kiwi instead of pineapple, cherries instead of grapes, or cucumbers instead of watermelon, you can still enjoy fruit while protecting the gift of sight. At this stage of life, every choice on your plate matters. It can either preserve your clarity or slowly dim the world around you. So ask yourself this, are the fruits you eat every day protecting your vision, or are they quietly taking it away? The answer is in your hands. Thank you so much for watching. If this video opened your eyes to something new, please give it a like, share it with friends and family who need to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more life-changing health insights. Take care of your eyes, take care of your health, and we'll see you in the next video.